Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chamber Chat. My name is Carol Guest. I am the chair of the board for the Greater Houston Black Chamber of Commerce, and we are delighted to have you again with us today. And we have a very special guest today. This is a special edition of Chamber Chat. As you may know, we have a runoff election coming up in July. Early voting starts June 29th, and we wanted to give the opportunity to the candidates in this race in the Democratic primary to talk about their positions and introduce themselves to the members of our organization so that you can be informed when you go to the polls. So today we have State Senator Royce West with us. Good afternoon, Senator West.
Carol, good afternoon to you.
And thank you for taking the time to join us today and to let the chamber know a little bit about what you stand for and why you're running. So if you could take just a few minutes to give us a little bit of your background, we'd appreciate it.
I appreciate this opportunity to address the chamber. My name is Royce West. I am a state senator from Senate District 23, which is in the Dallas area. I have a law degree from the University of Houston, and I have a master's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington in sociology. I have been an attorney for the past 40 years. I have an office in Dallas, one in Houston, and one in Fort Worth, Texas. In terms of the legislature, these past 27 years, I have served on numerous committees. The Committee for Criminal Justice, State Affairs, education, had a little glitch there. Education, higher education, transportation, and also finance, just to name a few. And hopefully we can get into some of the issues that are important to you, and I can kind of mix that background and that experience in based on the questions that you asked. But this is what I'll tell you in closing. My grandfather has always told me, you can tell what a person is going to do in the future, pretty much what they've done in the past. So I want you to look at my experience and look at my references and see whether or not Royce should be your choice for the United States Senate. I think you'll find that I'll be well prepared.
Thank you very much for letting our viewers know a little bit about yourself. You have been in the state Senate for a long time, and we hope to hear more about your experience as we go through our questioning today. So let's get started with a few questions concerning African American business.
Okay.
So, as you may be aware, there was a report released yesterday where 440,000 Black businesses have gone under since the start of COVID. The reported period is between February 2020 and April 2020. So one of the questions we have is, as U.S. Senator, what would be your plans to help African American businesses coming out of this pandemic in 2021?
Well, first of all, we've got to make certain that the money that's been appropriated for businesses actually get to the businesses that need them, as opposed to the Fortune 500. You know that's been a problem. The Treasury Secretary does not want any transparency at all. Here's a lesson right here. Business is politics, and politics is business. Carol, you know as well as I that in the state Senate, I've been carrying that banner for African American businesses for a long time. We've made some strides, not nearly the amount of strides that we need. In order to make certain we have systemic changes in terms of African American businesses, I didn't say minority businesses, I said African American businesses. We've got to make certain that we not only elect Joe Biden to become president of the United States and elect Royce West to be a United States Senator, we have to have a long-term goal. You know that when Barack Obama was elected president, there were a lot of people who said, we finally made it, we finally made it. No, not at all. Barack was there for about 8 years. But you know that you have an executive branch of government and a legislative branch of government. If we're going to have sustained change in African American businesses, it's got to be a long game. We need to make certain that we can elect presidents for 16 years and make certain that we have a plan for those 16 years in order to make certain that African American businesses get the opportunities that they much deserve. Not only the president, but we got to make certain that we're involved in the state legislature and also in Congress in electing people that have our best interests at heart. That's the only way. That's the only way, my friends, that is going to make sense. Business is politics, and politics is business.
And we understand that because that's the entire reason why we have an advocacy and policy committee, and advocacy is part of our motto, because we understand that we have to have friends that are elected officials that care about what we care about as Black business owners. So thank you for your response. And you know, just to continue along the vein, just kind of thinking about the things that African American businesses have to deal with. One of those things is healthcare for our employees. And many small businesses, many African American businesses find it difficult to provide healthcare for their employees. What are your thoughts regarding a healthcare co-op that would allow Black businesses to offer healthcare to their employees at a cheaper rate?
Well, I think I'm fine with that concept. You know, we need to make certain we do this whole healthcare space right now. You know, you have John Cornyn and Donald Trump wanting to do away with the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and so you know that's making its way through the court system. So we've got to make certain we as Democrats take control of that and get Obamacare fixed. There's a lot of issues associated with it, and so we deal with those issues. And then we can also look at co-ops for small businesses. I wouldn't just say African American businesses, but small businesses in general, being able to come together and pull together those healthcare co-ops. I think it's something that merits a great deal of discussion and also implementation.
Thank you. And do you think, you know, thinking about the PPP program, of course, you have to hire back employees, retain your employees in order for that program to work for you. But the money was distributed somewhat unfairly. You know, what are your thoughts around making sure African Americans, should we ever have to go this way again, can get some of that money distributed to us in a more fair manner?
This is what I'd ask you to do. The businesses that are a member of your chamber, try to pull together a two-page report in terms of what they perceive to be unfair about it, and make certain that Al Green, Sheila Jackson Lee, when I became your U.S. Senator, that I know about it. And so from that vantage point, if I'm able to get chambers around the state with Charles O'Neill and all of them to pull it together to know what the problems were, we can make certain the next time those problems are addressed.
Okay. And again, it's cooperation, you know, working among ourselves to get our elected officials the information that they need to advocate on our behalf. And that's something that we can certainly do. So we've heard that around the world, there are countries that have given stimulus money directly to businesses rather than to individuals, as we have in the United States. Not to say that, you know, individuals don't need stimulus checks, but money that has been given directly to businesses has helped their economies overall. What are your thoughts around, you know, if we going forward, or if we ever are in a pandemic position again, giving stimulus money directly to corporations as a way to better stimulate the economy?
Well, let me back up. We're still in the pandemic now.
Yes, we are.
Still in the pandemic.
We're still in it.
Yeah, we're still in it. You know, but this is the thing, Carol. The fact is, during our lifetime, we've never experienced this. 2020 has been a very unusual year during our lifetime. And so from that vantage point, people all over, leaders from all over the world have had to come up with a plan, okay? And who's to say one plan is better than the other? And so as we work our way through this pandemic, I'm hoping that a Biden administration will, number one, reopen the Office of Pandemic Response in the White House that President Obama put in place. And that one of the tasks that office should have is look around the world to see what worked and what didn't work, and decide whether or not it's a best practice that should be put in place the next time that we experience a pandemic here in the United States. I can tell you one thing that I know we need to do. We don't need to be outsourcing manufacturing of PPE and our pharmaceutical drugs. We need to repatriate that and make certain we bring that manufacturing back to the United States.
Well, that's definitely one way to stimulate our economy by providing jobs and an ecosystem for businesses by doing that. So,
and Carol, let me say this. Let me spend just a minute on this one. I think when we begin to look at the 440,000 African American businesses that are going out, that's gone out of business, were they manufacturers? What type of businesses? They're probably smaller businesses. I would suggest that the members of your chamber begin looking at the green economy, if you hadn't already started doing that, because there are business opportunities in the green economy. And by 2050, there's a goal to transition from to have net zero greenhouse emissions going into the environment. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Texan, and I know that 17% of our jobs in Texas are tied to oil and gas, but there's going to be a transition. And for those small businesses, I would recommend that over the next 30 years, you're going to begin seeing more and more green jobs and green business opportunities in this country. And you need to get ahead of the curve right now.
And as a U.S. Senator, what are your thoughts around some of the legislation and pushes, toward that green energy? Because that'll be something that our chamber members are going to be looking to see. Are there going to be minority set-asides? Are there going to be, is there going to be anything in place to ensure that minorities are able to take advantage of the green economy? Which leads me to my next question, regarding the federal contracting system that we have in place. What's your opinion of it? And how do you think it can be improved to make sure African-American businesses can obtain more contracts and more quality contracts?
Okay, this is what I've been trying to push down in state government, and mixed success, I'll admit. But there's a direct relationship between the people who are in procurement programs and the opportunities that people get. If there are more Anglos in there, they're going to get more Anglos are going to get the business. More women are going to get the business. Anglo women are going to get the business. Hispanic, same way. African Americans, the same way. And so that's why I'm saying to you that it has to be a long-term strategy, okay? And the strategy needs to be as follows. Number one, let's identify state agencies and also federal agencies that we can see that African Americans are not being hired, more specifically in their procurement sections, okay? And then demand that occurs, and then make certain we give a report card every year in terms of our legislators that have been advocates to get it done. And then we give a report card on the agency itself and on whoever's president of the United States or over that agency, okay? Let me say that again. We need to give a report card on the president, whoever the president is. We need to give a report card of whoever's over that agency to see whether or not we're able to get more people that look like us involved in the agency, specifically in its procurement sections. And if we do that, I think we're going to begin to see, and then demand that our businesses, African American businesses, get our fair share of the dollars. I think by doing that, we'll be able to have some demonstrable change, and we need to make sure that we sustain it. We've got to make certain there's a pipeline. We've got to make certain that there are interns going in, learning the business, and ultimately getting an opportunity being in the procurement sections. That's the way that we change the system, by making certain we hold the system accountable, by giving report cards and insisting upon those persons to come to our community for our votes, that we tell them what we want, we write it down, and they make sure they designate a person who's going to be responsible for reporting back to us and being our liaison on that issue and holding them accountable. Hold me accountable. I'll work on it. I've done it at the state level.
And could you tell us more about what you've done at the state level as
Oh,
far as?
yes. I mean, what I'll say is that Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson was a state senator in this seat before I became the senator back in 1993. She convened a meeting in Austin, in order to bring together people from around the state to begin what we call the historically underutilized business program. And for those who don't know what that is, it's the minority business program. That's exactly what you need to know. And from that time, myself and Rodney Ellis, who was a state senator at the time, we began pushing for African American inclusion. You know as well as I do about disparity studies. We were out front on getting a disparity study in the state of Texas and setting goals for procurement opportunities. And since that time, every legislative session, I've made certain that I've tried to hold each agency's feet to the fire in order to get additional procurement. But I hadn't been able to get it done by myself. You've had Boris Miles down there, Sean Theory, a whole host of representatives from the Harris County delegation has been right there with me attempting to do that. But we need to make certain that our chambers focus with laser certainty on agencies that have the most opportunity available for us in terms of contracting opportunities. Let's pick those agencies out and then focus on them to make certain we're getting the dollars. Health and Human Services, a lot of contracts here, but we need the chambers around the state to kind of focus in on it, let us know what the problems are, then allow us to respond to those problems to open up the doors of opportunity to our businesses. It's real important that your members support your agent, support your chamber, and put advocacies down in Austin to help us bird dog those opportunities for you.
And so what I'm hearing is that as an organized front presenting the issues to you, you would then advocate on our behalf, which is exactly what we would need as a chamber.
Well, Carol, please don't come to me and say, Senator West, I need a contract. I can't get you no contract. Okay.
So that's the wrong question. That's the wrong
question. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, if I'm advocating for the organization, that's exactly what I do. Here's the other thing. You may recall, and I know some of the legislators do. We've had business fairs with state agencies, and I continue to do that. I started those business fairs with minority businesses back in 1995, and we've been doing them every year here in the Dallas area. And I know there's been some there in Houston also. And we've been able to secure millions and millions of dollars of contract opportunities for minority and African American owned businesses, both men and women.
And that's what we need. We need more of that. So everyone, if you're paying attention to this great conversation we're having with Senator Royce West, make sure that you contact us to get involved in the fairs, and that you also pay attention in the community to let us know that these sorts of things are going on so that we can continue to support them. We have to show our elected officials what we want in the community and what we need in the community and support them in that way. So thank you, Senator West, for doing that. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about criminal justice and police reform.
Carol, your voice has gone down some.
Okay, can you hear me a little bit better?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I was saying that we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about police reform and criminal justice. So, the climate that we're in right now, we hate that we lost George Floyd. And then, Atlanta has erupted. And then we found out that a young teen was hung here in Texas. Things have really started to, I think, come to the surface because, African Americans have had to deal with these types of issues for a long time. So what's your platform? What are your thoughts with regard to criminal justice? We'll start with that one.
Let me say this, Carol. As an African American man, I'm on an emotional roller coaster ride every single day. As a state senator that has worked in this area Let me just kind of take you back. James Byrd, you remember James Byrd?
Yes.
African-American man who was put in chains behind a pickup truck and drugged till his whole body was dismembered. 3 men were ultimately arrested. All 3 Anglos. One had a tattoo on his body of a man hanging from a tree. I mean, what is it about us other than the color of our skin that intimidates racists? And I would hope that every person that you have come before you asking for your support not only give lip service, but has a plan and will work that plan. They should tell you and your members that Black lives matter. And if they hesitate, you need to think twice about supporting them. They need to tell you without hesitation that Black lives matter. We now have an opportunity during this time to no longer be a victim of history, but to be able to make history. What do I mean by that? When you begin to see the broad section of people that are supportive of structural changes to our police department, when you begin to see Democrats and yes, now Republicans coming up with recommendations, it gives you hope. Now, Pinocchio, on the other hand, that's the guy in the White House, says that he has done more for African Americans than Barack Obama. That's a lie. You know it as well as I do. Another lie he's told. And so what do I think? Well, what I think is some of the proposals that are being presented by the Congressional Black Caucus, and most agencies agree with it. We don't need to have chokeholds. We don't need to have no-knock warrants. We need to make certain that we have a list of the gypsy cops, and the gypsy cops are cops that decide to resign facing an internal affairs complaint. They resign and then they end up someplace else and begin causing troubles. We need to have a national registry for that. We tried to get it here in Texas, but the Republicans would not support it. We need to make certain in this country, why is it that we have 50 different laws on when a police officer can use deadly force? I mean, you take Atlanta. That officer was not in any way, shape, or form in danger of bodily harm. He shot Mr. Brooks in the back. Why? Is it the policy? Is it the law of Georgia that they can do that? And so my point is this: we need to make certain that we have one law in the United States of when a police officer can use deadly force. And we need to make certain that any state that's receiving federal funds adopt that law as a minimum law in terms of the use of deadly force. We need to make certain that these policies of these police departments are consistent, that we have the training to support it. And the other piece is this: if indeed a police officer in a state that has a hate crimes law, which we have in the state of Texas, thanks to Rodney Ellis, myself, and others in the Senate, we need to make certain that if that officer is found guilty of murdering someone based on their race, that they should be subject to hate crime penalties. What do I mean? That means then that if the penalty is a maximum of 20 years, as an example, then the penalty would go up to a maximum of life under hate crimes laws if a jury found that was the result of a hate crime. So those are a few of the ideas that I have concerning restructuring this police deal. And no, I do not want to see police departments defunded. What I do want to do is to make certain that we make sure we have a focus on what police officers are supposed to do. And then those other things, social services, mental health services, truancy, all those things given to other agencies that should be responsible for those types of activities.
It's very interesting. I was looking at the 13th Amendment the wording of the 13th Amendment last night, and it stated that slavery was abolished, except for criminal activity, someone convicted of criminal activity. And in the state of Texas, the prison system, prison business is very active. So what are your thoughts? Should you become our next U.S. Senator, what are your thoughts with regard to the school to prison pipeline, the prison industry, as far as African Americans? How do we stop the sheer number? What are your thoughts around that, as far as African Americans being part of their prison population?
When you begin to look at some of the programs that we put in place, you asked Texas Southern and Prairie View, where Royce West has been on protecting their interest and getting the necessary resources to put together the programs necessary in order to educate young African American and Latinos. And they'll tell you, I've been their guardian and will continue to do so. You ask the historically Black colleges, private colleges, who has been a champion for them in the past, and I'll tell you that Royce West had, because education obviously is important. When you begin to look at Houston and Dallas, where you have most of the African American population in the state, you've got to understand that Texas, number one, has more African Americans than any other state in this country, right here in Texas. And yes, Boris Miles and I have been able to work on programs that have been able to specifically target African American males, okay? Because we know what happens to them in the school or prison pipeline. And we've been successful. I have a program that I put in place some 20 years ago called a Community Youth Development Program. You have a couple of them right there in Harris County. I work with Conrad Coleman to get them done. They're making a difference. We need to have more of those types of programs that are laser focused. But the argument we always come up with, Carol, is that we can't do that because that's just for African American. Well, then what we say, we'll make it based on the zip code. Don't use race, okay? Because zip code is a good proxy for race anyway, okay? And so we've been successful in some of those arguments. But what happens is that those programs are the last ones funded and the first ones cut. That's why I'm going back to what I told you a few minutes ago. We have to have a sustainable effort of electing people that have our interests at heart. We have 1.8 million African Americans in this state that are registered to vote, and about 1.2 actually vote. And we need to register more African Americans and get them to be a part of a sustained effort to restructure what happens in this state and what happens in this country. If we do that, some of the issues that you've mentioned to me can be addressed. We'll put the resources there. We'll make certain that the accountability is there, and that's transparent.
I agree that there needs to be a plan, and there are many people thinking of strategies and plans right now. Hopefully we can get to something cohesive that's an African American agenda across the board. And speaking of that, we know that education is something that's important to us. And in doing my research on your platform, I know education is important to you as well.
Yeah.
And so right now, during this COVID pandemic, we are experiencing a digital divide where poor and underserved communities may not be able to keep up as well as white kids are, because they don't have the money for laptops, access to the internet, etc. What are your thoughts around closing that gap for African American kids?
Well, we know that there's going to be problems this fall. We already know that, okay? And so there needs to be public-private partnerships in order to make certain that we put the necessary broadband and internet connections, Wi-Fi and all that stuff in homes where we have these children. We need to make certain that the private sector, we provide them a tax credit or whatever case may be, in order to make certain we provide those devices to those children in the homes that need that. That should be happening now. And I know that the Commissioner of Education is about to come out today or within the next few days about a plan concerning deployment of devices and opening schools in the fall. This is a great opportunity for some of the businesses that may very well have gone out of business to pick up the mantle and come up with a plan to work with some of these technology companies to deploy broadband in some of these data deserts in urban America as well as rural America. Hopefully some of them are out there, and if they're interested in doing that, please let me know, and let's get some of these good meaning, I shouldn't say it that way. Let me get some of these companies now that are now having a change of heart and want to do things in order to kind of end racism, to give them an opportunity to do something that's meaningful, provide broadband in our communities. And not just broadband, because I can tell you, I live in what I consider a middle-class African-American community. And guess what? And I don't know about you, our broadband, excuse the expression, sucks, okay? And I'm on AT&T and Spectrum right now because you got about 250,000 people that are experiencing the same problem.
Well, internet service can certainly be spotty, Senator. So I do understand your pain.
You understand my pain?
I understand your pain. I understand your pain. But it's good to hear that this technology divide that we're experiencing is something that's important to you, because we need a workforce. Our business owners need a well-trained workforce, and we depend on the public school system to get our students ready for future employment. So thank you for your comments. And just speaking of families and parents, wanted to get your thoughts on paid family leave. There are some businesses that don't offer that to their employees, can't afford to offer it, but many parents who have school-age children at home because they're not able to go to school, and we're in the summer months now, so they wouldn't be in school, but they have to go to work. What are your thoughts around providing a program like that, a federal program like that, for maybe hourly workers, frontline workers that have to go to work?
I think that it has to be, I'm in favor of it, first of all. Given where we are right now, the fact is that we've got to have a safety net. There's a safety we have a contract with people in this country. You do X, we'll do Y, okay? And if people are working and they have no fault of their own, schools are not open for some reason, and they have to make certain that they provide daycare, then we need to make certain that they're able to do that. But it needs to be a collaboration between the state government, the federal government, and the local government. And frankly, I wouldn't put that type of burden on small businesses from the standpoint that small businesses need, every person that that needs to be on board, and they can't afford, in many instances, to pay someone and then bring someone else in order to take care of the responsibilities of that person on a temporary basis. And so I want to take a good hard look at whether or not the business can afford it, and also what the collaboration would be between the government, state, local, and federal, and the business itself.
Well, I think our member businesses would be happy to hear that you don't think that's a burden that small businesses need to take on. I mean, quite frankly, many small businesses cannot, just simply cannot. So we will look forward to whatever your plans are should you become our next U.S. Senator. And we appreciate your time today. I know we're coming up on the end of our time, but before we conclude, tell our members why you would be the best person to serve the state of Texas as our next U.S. Senator.
Carol, thank you very much. This time it went by so fast, so quickly. My friends, are we going to be a victim of history, or are we going to make history? We have the opportunity to send someone to Washington that's well prepared from the standpoint I've served for 27 years. I've dealt with issues concerning criminal justice effectively. I've dealt with education issues effectively, higher education issues the same way. Healthcare, I've been right there trying to expand healthcare in the state of Texas. Climate change, I've worked on climate change issues. I've worked on issues concerning voting rights and a whole host of other issues. You want someone with that type of experience to go to Washington. And I have had to work across the aisle most of my legislative career in order to get things done. I'm the person that put in place the law concerning body cameras, and you know what that's meant. Dash cameras, you know what that's meant. So you need a person that's been forward thinking on a multitude of issues. I'm that person. And then when you begin to look at my references, right there in Harris County, the mayor of the city of Houston, Sylvester Turner, Rodney Ellis, Boris Miles, Al Green, Sylvia Garcia, Sean Theory, Harold Denison, Fronia Thompson. I can go on and on and on in terms of trusted leaders in your city, in your county, that are supportive of Royce West. And the reason they're supportive because they know that I'll get the job done. I want to represent you. I want to make certain that we make history together in this state. And the time is now when people recognize that we must do something to change the perception, not only the perception, but change the structure concerning racism in this country. Wouldn't be a better occasion for this state to elect the first African American who's ready, not just because he's African American, but he's ready to serve the entire state of Texas. So I'd ask you to go to roycewest.com. And if you can contribute to the campaign, we need your money. But I want you to know that the election is July 14th, and early election starts on June 29th through July the 10th. I ask you for your support. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Senator West. So again, Chamber family, if you would like to know more about Senator Royce West, please go to roycewest.com. He has outlined his thoughts regarding his platform. We've also had him to serve on at least one panel regarding public policy issues that he shared his vision with the chamber. And so we thank you, Senator West, for taking the time to come down and visit with us last year. And again, everyone, early voting starts June 29th. For this Democratic primary. Election day is July 14th. Please make sure you know where you're voting. Well, you can vote anywhere in Harris County. And so that's what's new. So remember that. And we want to make sure that you get to the polls, you get your family to the polls, and you stay engaged throughout this election season. So thank you again, Senator West, for joining Chamber Chat today. Everyone, please stay tuned every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. for Chamber Chat, where we bring you information that you can use during this COVID-19 period. Also, remember to buy Black. Support Black businesses at HoustonBuyBlack.com. Again, HoustonBuyBlack.com. We need your support during this time. And also, you can donate to help our causes at www.ghbcc.com/foundation. We have a foundation, a 501c3, where we can accept tax deductible donations. Again, thank you for joining us today for Chamber Chat. Thank you, Senator West, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.